It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. However you're listening to the show, even if you're listening on our podcast feed, which you can find on 1069thefan.com or on the mobile app or wherever you get your podcasts. We welcome listeners of all kinds. If you want to join in on the show, whether you're listening live or after the fact, you can do so via the Young Power Sports Logan text line, 435-339-0321. Plenty to go over today with Utah State football and Utah State basketball. It's that time of year where there's going to be a lot more overlap between these two sports. Things got going with Aggie Madness, kind of setting the stage for Utah State basketball for both the men's and women's team. Had a chance to talk with the coaches afterward, both Wes Brooks and Jared Calhoun. You'll get to hear from them. We'll punt that over to the second hour is when you'll be able to hear from the coaches there and kind of get more thoughts overall on Aggie Madness. We'll spend a lot of this first hour talking about Utah State football as they prepare for San Jose State. And it'll be a big homecoming game and a lot riding on this one now with that loss to Hawaii. There's, the stakes get a little bit higher. The margins for error a lot thinner when it comes to Utah State's hope for a bowl game, let alone, making it to the Mountain West title game. We'll also have the stat that blew our mind, our Full Court Press players of the week. Some thoughts on the NBA as the Jazz continue their preseason, and also some awards, national awards for Utah State soccer player. So we'll get into that in just a minute. Eric Frandsen's been a very busy man. He's waiting to step into the studio. So he's got a lot of things on his plate at the moment. So we're going to go ahead and clear the text line before we dive straight into our topic on San Jose. A few texters in before the show. 5662 says, listening on the pod, do you think there's any accountability with Nick Howell and the defensive scheme after the bye week, or has Howell been with Bronco too long to have those hard conversations? Seems like the team was surprised by Hawaii's passing attack. Also, credit Bronco and the players for not using the travel and all mishaps as an excuse. With that being said, I think it had a huge impact on the loss and the way the game went. That and holding calls. And yeah, it is interesting with Nick Howell, the fact that he's basically he's been the defensive coordinator for Bronco Mendenhall across now 4 different schools in about 17 years. I don't think 17 years as a defensive coordinator, but yeah, you wonder, is there that accountability there? If things go truly south, does Bronco consider, if the defense is just horrible? It was horrible with the Lobos last year, and it's not looking good this year. Is there enough accountability between Bronco Mendenhall and Nick Howell to potentially look to part ways? I don't think that conversation needs to happen. It's year one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you need to give
way
him,
too early for that.
Yeah, you need to give him some time and space, but that's something to keep an eye on. Is, if you're a good defensive coordinator, I don't think you're getting caught that off guard by Hawaii. But Nick Howell has a decent track record. It's just the last 2 years have been, really the last 4 years, because his Vanderbilt defenses weren't that great either.
Okay, so take this in context, and thanks for letting me be a little bit tardy today.
No worries.
So take this in context. At Vanderbilt, when he got there, Vanderbilt was a doormat, and Coach Lee has been building them up to be the team they are today. This is extremely rare to have a very competitive Vanderbilt team in the SEC. And they had to start somewhere.
Okay, but they were a doormat when Nick Howell was there.
Right,
they went 5-7 one year and 2-10 the next year.
Right. So yes,
and they ranked in like the bottom 15 for points allowed per game.
And what were they before he arrived?
About the same, 2-10, 0-9, 3-9.
Right, they weren't good.
Yeah.
Right. So he was there, part of a regime that was trying to change some things. And as anybody who has been around Utah State for a while, it can take a minute. Let's go back to Gary Anderson's first couple of years. Was that big changes right away? No, it took some time. It took to year 3 before they started to really break through. And that was because of a fantastic second half performance sparked at Hawaii that got things going.
They didn't get to use the transfer portal, though.
No, they didn't. So, but with Coach Howell, so he arrives at Vanderbilt, it's a dumpster fire, and they're trying to change the culture and improve things. He goes to New Mexico. It's not good. He only has 1 year there. So it's really hard to develop and change and recruit and improve in 1 year. It's his first year here. He hasn't had a lot of time to recruit, improve, and change. So yes, it's frustrating, and you can look at the last 4 years when he's been a D coordinator. Okay, well, you have to take it in context. What was the situation he walked into? So I'm not ready to start, burning the ships and, lighting our hair on fire. I think it is a matter of concern that needs to be watched, but it was a frustrating loss, and how it happened is frustrating for good reason. I'm not saying anybody's unjustified for being frustrated. I'm just trying to provide a little bit of context that let's wait a minute and see what he can do and this coaching staff can do with another full recruiting cycle and transfer portal cycle to address the concerns and situations they have with the people and the personnel that they need.
Yeah, and so there is that lesson in patience that we do need to learn to make sure that we don't overreact. And that's something where I don't know if I overreacted too much to the Hawaii loss, but it's when you see the potential for the team, like, going into that Hawaii game, I thought that there was a potential to win that game. And the fact that they played kind of as bad as they did, well, and again, it was for certain stretches. Because I outlined that a little bit in the Monday cool down, where it's like, hey, they played good for some of it, and Bronco outlined that, but then they just absolutely let it go. And the fact that you have that stacked on playing Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, I know those are good teams, but again, not playing well on defense. So it's more that after seeing them play pretty decently well and then to seemingly regress a little bit. And maybe that was just how good they always were. Maybe they were playing lesser opponents. And maybe Hawaii is just that good. Maybe their offense is comparable in some ways to these better teams they're playing. But yeah, I think ultimately we do need to go back and remember what we said in the summer, where it's like, year 1, we can't expect too much from this team. And I think a lot of people got excited. I think me and you were thinking, hey, this team might be able to go places, maybe anticipating that with a Hawaii win. And then it didn't happen. And now we're back to where we have to remember where the roots are for this season. It's Bronco Mendenhall beginning a rebuild.
Right. And culture can take you a lot of places. Establishing the right culture, the right mentality, that can do a lot of things for a team. But you still need, talent and athletic skill. And what you really want in an ideal situation is have the right culture with the right skill. You pair that together and you can have something really special. And I think that this team has been still trying to figure out what they have. And they're still trying to build the culture and do with what they can with the skill that they have. It's having another skilled person in the secondary is going to help some of that. But, you bring somebody on in the 6th game of the season who hasn't been there, and that changes things. You move guys around in different positions. They may be skilled, but, do they understand the body language of everybody else? Do they understand the nuance of what's been developing over the last few months. So it just, sometimes that takes some time. I'm not saying those are excuses, but those are realities.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, when we talk about building a program, the one thing that, I would worry a little bit about is program building isn't so much a thing anymore because you don't keep guys for 3-4 years, not at the mid-major level.
Like you could remake 3/4 of your roster in one off season.
Like Vanderbilt over the last 3 seasons, they've had like a lot of the same offensive linemen. They've had Diego Pavia for a couple of years. They've had some of their, other skill position guys there for 2 or 3 years. Obviously there's some turnover and they've added guys via the transfer portal. But Clark Lee got to build his program over 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Bronco doesn't really get to do that at Utah State. A lot of his better players that he has right now that have eligibility for 2026, he can't bank on those guys being around next year. Anybody that's really good could end up leaving. A lot of his wide receivers that, maybe have 1 or 2 years of eligibility. I think Brady Boyd, I think he's on his final year, and I think Braden Pigan might have another year, but like those guys that are having good seasons, they can end up leaving. They're guys who came from power conference teams. They may want to go back to the power conferences. His offensive and defensive linemen, some of his linebackers. I know John Miller's on his last season of eligibility, but can Bronco actually build something? That's kind of the worry there, is like he's in a place where 1-year rebuilds might be the requirement. So while Gary Anderson got and needed 3 years to take the program from a bit of the dumpster fire it had been in the 2000s, and he built it into a respectable mid-major program. Bronco Mendenhall is not going to, he can be here for 3 years and have 3 different rosters. So it's really harsh to judge a coach by the standard of he has to have a 1-year rebuild every year, but that might be what he has to be able to do.
Well, the standard used to be when you got a new coach, you can't overreact until year 3. Yeah. Because you got to give that coach and that coaching staff time to understand the conference that they're in, understand the university where they're at, the conference that they're in, and do their recruiting and development in the program, how they want it done, because it takes time for that to cycle out. Okay. Now that's accelerated where there are no limits to how many players you can bring in anymore. You can literally remake your roster in one off season. Yeah. Now, there's still, yes, that's true. That's a fact. But how much of those guys are developing or are developed how you want them to? So there is a need for some carryover in how you do your own development. Yeah. So, and I think there should still be some patience in that. We still have high school recruits and guys that are developing who are, they'll be true freshmen, redshirt freshmen. I mean, you got a guy like Junior Sia who's in his 3rd season. He's finally getting to play. This is one of the highest rated recruits the Aggies have gotten in a while. An offensive lineman, I believe he was from the state of Utah. Wasn't he from one of the top high schools? I can't remember. Junior Sia? Yeah, Junior Sia. But he didn't play for 2 years. Now he's coming in playing his first snaps. And there's, you also get a guy like Chris Joe and Will Holmes, guys that you've brought in. Yeah, he's from Harriman. Yeah, Harriman. Mountain Ridge High School. Mountain Ridge, okay. So you have guys that you're building up. And so you add transfers on top of that. So there's one aspect of roster building where coaches need to be able to bring in win now players. And there still remains, even though transfers have kind of taken a bigger share of this, there is still an aspect of developing your homegrown talent. So in that sense, you think, okay, at the very least, give Bronco a chance. Because if in year 1, he couldn't bring in, he couldn't do what Blake Anderson did and brought in a Mountain West championship winning roster. Blake hit a home run in year 1. Bronco, it appears so far that he has not hit a home run in year 1. But the thing is, Blake then just about struck out the rest of his tenure. Can Bronco do the opposite? Blake still got teams to bowl games. Yeah, he still got. I mean, let's not pile on, because there's some people it was so bad and Bronco had to come in and fix things. Well, there were some off the field stuff maybe, but as a football perspective, like Blake always got the team to bowl game, and to some degree was in contention to be among the top teams in the conference. So let's not do revisionist history on Blake Anderson's tenure. But the other thing too, he had going for him, like the Gary Anderson's team underperformed, and then they had COVID, and there were some weird things going on. The roster itself was talented, and Blake came in with a few key transfers, not a lot, but a few key transfers. That team was ready and primed to do something special, and he walked in at the right time, and they achieved it. Yeah. So difference here is that last year it was in disarray, and it's a different story now where so many guys can leave at will and so much player movement. It's hard to say last year's roster was good and it was primed for something special. It was good, but a lot of those guys who were good are no longer here.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just tricky trying to find the right context to judge Bronco Mendenhall in year one, because there is an aspect where a guy can turn around in one season, but they're probably not going to. So you still need to maintain that patience of, hey, can you bring in transfers that'll be here year two? Can you develop your own, freshman recruits? And so I think in that sense, it almost reminds me of the way I'm trying to view Wes Brooks' tenure at Utah State with the women's basketball, where he comes in and, if he'd been able to bring in all of the right transfers, maybe he could have done well in year one, but he didn't. He tried something, it didn't work. But then after he got established for a year, he found a recruiting groove, and it's looking like the team's going to be better this season. He brought in some pretty dang good transfers, I'm being honest. Starters on good teams, former 5-star recruit, brought in some international players. Like he's got the team primed to maybe bounce back. And perhaps that's the way the Broncos going to be. He comes in, a lot of the recruits and maybe a lot of the transfers are like not necessarily his. He has to kind of work around it, haphazard. Wasn't he hired in January, late December? So it's like, has to try and figure things out late in the process. So who knows? Maybe next year he'll have a better grasp of things. But yeah, ultimately, patience is the key. But having said that, it's not going to wipe out the frustration of what's happening this season.
No, yeah, very true.
Because there's still things like they still put out a football program, a football team, and you want to go out there and win games. And they expect to win a lot. Like Utah State expected to win that game, and they didn't.
When the team shows flashes of what they can become, and when they don't meet that, then that's where we start to get frustrated. Like we know what you're capable of. We know this roster and this coaching staff, what they are capable of. And it did not meet that expectation last Saturday. There were some extenuating circumstances that may have contributed to that, but they also had a lot of self-inflicted issues that they brought on themselves.
Yeah. Let's go through more on the text line. 4475 sending in an essay and saying we don't need to read the whole thing on the air. I have read. I'm probably going to read it again too, because there's a lot there. A lot of great feedback. Appreciate sending that in. 2444. Talking about Aggie Madness. I know it was mostly just competitions for fun, but any takeaway for either of you from Aggie Madness last night? We're going to get into a little bit more in the second hour. I know this came in before the show, so I hadn't made that note yet. But Eric, I know you weren't able to make it. I was there, but it was a nice little event. I think the more important things were when this is my perspective. I felt like some of the things that were said afterward by the coach, mind you, that was with the media, it wasn't said in public, but there were almost more interesting things in the coach's availability afterward than there was during the event. Because, it was mostly just competitions.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fan exhibition opportunity for...
It wasn't even an exhibition. It was just, it was a 3-point contest, a dunk contest, a game of Simon Says, and then they also like a little relay race.
Yeah, maybe I should clarify, an exhibition of talent, not necessarily of the team on the court together.
Yeah.
But skill competitions. But it was an opportunity to connect with fans and to get them excited for the upcoming season. The biggest issue, you're right, I think the bigger things came about afterwards, from what I understand, from what I've heard. And I'm excited to hear you guys discuss that next hour.
Yeah. Eric's going to be heading off. He's going to be sneaking off Utah State football practice. JD should be joining us for the second hour. Kind of on that note, 533. You got to text us in later. It says, hey, JD, what about those Ducks? Quack, quack, boom. I have no clue what the context is around that.
Well, Oregon lost.
Oh,
Indiana beat Oregon.
That's true. I guess
Corvallis.
A couple of days after that. I've already forgotten last weekend.
You might have to bring that up later when JD joins. Or maybe you shouldn't bring that
well,
back
he'll
up
be probably wearing his Seattle Mariners jersey. I'm sure he's still happy about that. 2603. Actually, well, pretty much echoing what I think we'd already started the conversation, but 2603 saying, I'm happy with the USU football program. Patience is key here. I believe we're on the right direction. And yeah, I think, I mean, here's the problem is that I had more confidence in that in the last few games. And Hawaii felt like the first time where it's like, I felt like they were, it's why, like when I keep comparing them, the defense to the 2024 defense, there's that feeling of, well, are they progressing? That's kind of the issue there is it's like, have they gotten that much better? Now, ultimately, it's year one of a tenure, and there's things that you can draw from that. But you do want to see continued progress. And that's what I think the rest of the season is going to bring, because the season doesn't end at Hawaii. You've got a game against San Jose. You go play good against the Spartans, that resets things in a positive direction.
Yeah, we're only at midterms here.
Yeah.
Midterms, there have been some tests that the Aggies have scored well on and a few missing assignments. Some that they thought they were prepared and turned out they didn't know the subject matter as well as they thought they did. But there in some of these moments that we've seen so far, there are things to get excited about with this coaching staff and with this team. But then we get reminded that, okay, they still have a ways to go.
Yeah.
To get to where they really need to be, where they potentially could become. And so but you're right. I'm still excited about the second half of the season because there are a lot more winnable games on the schedule from here on out for Utah State. They still have a chance to be bowl eligible. Do they have a chance to play in the conference championship game? Technically, yes.
Well, mathematically, yes. At this point,
it'll be a challenge, but they're not out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still chance for this team to turn things around, but it starts Friday.
Yeah, it starts Friday. As I was saying, kind of at the beginning of the show, the margins are thinner. You can still technically appear in the Mountain West title game. I think they do probably need help at this point, just because if Hawaii and San Diego State went out, they get in. Utah State doesn't. But if either of them lose at any point and the Aggies did win, mathematically speaking, they can still get in. But bowl game wise, there's still that chance. And heck, preseason, that was kind of the goal. Right. Make a bowl game.
Yeah. And we thought that if Utah State would go bowling under Bronco Mendenhall's first year in July, we're thinking, gosh, that's amazing. We'd be ecstatic about that.
Yeah. So hopefully
we should still be.
Yeah. They just need to make sure that they don't stumble again. And that's kind of the key for that. We got to take a break. We'll overdue, so we'll get to the text line again. We will eventually shift toward talking about that San Jose game and the keys for the Aggies. We'll take our first look at the Spartans and what challenge they will bring. That's coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat is thrilled to welcome Dr. Jackson Deere to their team of trusted specialists. Dr. Deere joins Drs. Blatter and Robinette to provide exceptional medical and surgical care for your ears, nose, throat, and related structures of the head and neck. Appointments are now available. Whether it's allergies, hearing, or sinus concerns, Cache Valley ENT is here to help you live the life you deserve. Welcome Dr. Deere to Cache Valley and the team at Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat, now serving Logan, Providence, Tremonton, Preston, and Montpelier.
At Mountain Valley Heating and Air, it's more than just service. They provide top quality installations for both residential and commercial spaces. So you're not just getting equipment, you're getting a whole team of professionals dedicated to making sure you and your family truly feel the love. Whether it's a brand new installation or replacing an old system, trust the experts who care. Feel the love with Mountain Valley Heating and Air. That's mtnvalleyhvac.com.
Hi,
Hi, it's Emily, and here at Serenoni, we know not everyone sleeps the same. Some people run warm, some love to bundle up, even during the summer. That's why we offer different fabrics and textures, from light and breathable to warm and weighted, including our softest Minky, Plush Lush, Minky Stretch, Waffle, and more. There's truly a blanket for everyone. Come shop our full collection in our store on 10th West in Logan, next to iFit, where you can feel the difference. Serenoni, wrapped in comfort, gifted with love.
Looking for a shed that's built to last? At Top Shed, we're making sheds great again. Crafted with premium materials right here in northern Utah, our custom sheds are built strong for the toughest conditions, and will even come built on-site in towns like Logan, Tremont, and Preston, Malad. With late summer and fall here, now is the perfect time to get your shed designed, built, and delivered for year-round use. Top Shed, making sheds great again. Call 435-760-7766 or visit topshedusa.com.
Hi, I'm Jessica, and I am a brain cancer survivor. When I was 11 years old, I spent a lot of time at my local children's hospital for brain surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. When I was in the hospital, I had no idea how much the medical bills were costing my family, and the insurance didn't cover all the equipment and treatments I needed. Thanks to donations to my hospital, I received amazing care and was able to kick cancer's butt. Today, I am 16 years old, and I am so excited about my future, where I can graduate from high school and become a professional speaker to share my story and give back to Children's Miracle Network hospitals. I believe if we donate to children's hospitals, we can change kids' health and change the future. You can help too. Give now at childrensmiraclenetworkhospitals.org and put your money where the miracles are. Thank you.
They never could play it, but they sure can talk about it. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker on the Full Court Press.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press, where we've seemingly suitably calmed down after Monday's criticism fest of Utah State. Still plenty to criticize there, I think.
Yeah,
but we gotta reset, make sure there's still hope for the season.
Right. To get better, whatever you do, you have to recognize where are things going wrong or what challenges are there. You have to recognize what they are, address them, and then how do you move on, right? How do you improve so you don't make those same mistakes? And so I think that a lot of the message yesterday was the frustrations and recognizing the problems. And now we need to start shifting into, okay, so where does Utah State go from here? They have an opponent on Friday that is a good team, but they're a beatable team. A team at the start of the year we thought could contend for the conference championship, but they've not had that kind of a season yet. So they have the potential to be very good in the conference, but they struggled out of the gates. They might be figuring a few things out, but I still think Utah State can make this a really interesting game, and I still believe Utah State can beat San Jose.
Yeah, I definitely think they can as well. I mean, even before, like the Hawaii game, it was projected to be a one-possession game against Hawaii, and then like the San Jose, San Jose, I think maybe it was one possession game, but it was like much more favorable to Utah State, like 65-70% chance of winning, whereas the Aggies were like 48-49% chance to win against Hawaii. So I think even when you saw a bit of a lackluster performance by the offense and kind of more especially the defense against Hawaii, you look at San Jose, they're not the team that we were thinking they were preseason, where, they just had their own little collapse against Wyoming, where they played good for a decent chunk of that game, and then they collapsed in the fourth quarter. And in that sense, there's a lot of similarities between Utah State and San Jose, where they're both coming off losses where they really felt like they should have won, and they felt like they were a good enough team to win. And those are the even more frustrating losses. That's why there was way more frustration after the Hawaii game than there was after any of the previous losses, because everyone expected the Aggies to lose to Vanderbilt. They expected them to lose to Texas A&M. But then when they lost to Hawaii, it was like, well, wait a minute. We thought we were going to win this game. They were favored. It's the first time the Aggies have lost when they were a favored team. It's the first time they didn't cover the spread. First time they didn't beat expectations. And so now comes the response. You just had kind of your first major flub on the season. How do you respond to that? In that sense, how do both teams respond to that? San Jose State's maybe had more of those flubs where like their whole season has kind of been a what the heck is going on? We were supposed to be a borderline contender in the Mountain West and we're not. And so they've maybe gone through more of these sets of frustration. But for Utah State, this is the first time they've kind of been punched in the mouth in the sense that they did worse than everyone expected them to. So how are they going to respond to that? And that's what we're gonna find out much more about this team. We found out some of the weaknesses of the Aggies when they played Hawaii. That there's some real concerns with the defense. But now we're going to find out, okay, how good is this team mentally? Because that's where, are they going to improve on those things? Is the defense going to improve? Are they going to, instead of where they kind of limped to the finish line against Hawaii, are they going to finish strong? Kind of like how they did against Air Force, where in that game they actually finished strong, kept it from being a one-possession game. So that becomes kind of the new most interesting thing about this game. Because before it was like, if they'd beaten Hawaii, it's a continuation of momentum. Can they carry that through the season? Now it's a game about bouncing back and overcoming probably your biggest bit of adversity to this point in the season.
Yeah, and there are some similarities between these two teams. Utah State and Hawaii and San Jose State. And to a lesser degree, Vanderbilt. The nice thing is that this is the third similar kind of offense in a row for Utah State that they have to plan for and prepare for. Whereas in the first 6 games, like it's a pretty drastic difference every week to prepare for a different opponent. There are some pretty interesting similarities between the Spartans and the Warriors, and Bronco kind of alluded to that and addressed that earlier this week.
Certainly it's helpful to play back-to-back, and then we can certainly address what we didn't do well versus Hawaii, what we did, and then apply it versus a new opponent that's similar, not identical. And so I think that's a key point, is they are similar but not identical. It's not the same offense. The formations look similar. The intent on throwing the football looks similar, but how it's done is not the same. Helpful for us that Coach McGiven is coming from San Jose, was the receivers coach there a year ago. It's the same coordinator offensively. And so there's some reference points and questions we can get quick answers to, which is really helpful. But again, we're really working to improve our team, our execution, our coverage, again, the situations, the pressure, and the different things needed to have success.
Yeah, and I like what Bronco kind of talking about at the end there, because obviously there's going to be some similarities. They're going to maybe be a little bit further ahead, and I think that'll probably help. That'll have an impact in their game plan, considering that it's a day earlier. So when they need to have quicker response to, okay, what are we looking for in the game plan? What's their offense like? The fact that they can be a little bit ahead, that's encouraging.
Yes, that'll pay big dividends.
Yeah, so they're not wasting as much time, and they don't have as much time. So that really helps. That really lines up, because systemically there's some similarities to Hawaii, and then they have someone who was part of this scheme just last year with Kevin McGiven, the offensive coordinator. But as I was getting to at the kind of the start of this, when Bronco talks about they just need to improve themselves, because the problem against Hawaii wasn't that they didn't know how to defend it. They knew what was coming. Nick Howell faced they'd faced that same offense, that same quarterback the year before, got torched by him. So it wasn't that they didn't know what was coming with Hawaii. It's just that they didn't, prepare the players, or the players didn't execute, any number of different things that didn't go well in that game. Utah State lost because Utah State didn't execute for the most part. And Hawaii, to give credit to Hawaii, they did execute and they did play really well.
They made the right adjustments.
Yeah, I don't want to act like Utah State got beat by some scrub, because Hawaii is a good team, and I think I underestimated them. But Utah State needs to get better in their coverage schemes. Like several of the big plays, Bronco Mendenhall some of them were offhand comments, but he's like, hey, this was a busted coverage where the scheme wasn't broken. We talk about Nick Howell getting beat by Hawaii's scheme. Like the scheme was there and the coverage got busted. Or maybe you have, Ike Larson, who's new to the scheme, needs to get more reps to get better and better. It's not like he was bad, but one play here, one play there, where maybe somebody, be Ike or anybody, isn't in the right play, and that can have big consequences. So it's Utah State needing to get better. But it's all wrapped up in, hey, this is an opponent that's very similar to the last one we faced, so that'll help in preparation. But along with that, it's a chance to prove to yourself, hey, we just got our butts kicked on defense by this kind of offense. Let's go out there and show that we have improved.
Right. Let's show everybody that was an anomaly, not what we're really all about.
Yeah.
And so, the nice thing about having a game and a short turnaround after a loss is that these players are very motivated to go out there and show that's not who we really are. We're better than that. And we want to go show everybody that we are better than that.
Yeah, and that's what I really want to see because that's kind of the wonderful thing about the season is that Utah State doesn't have to be the same team that lost to Hawaii 3 or 4 weeks from now. They don't even have to be that same team this week. You can play an awful game and then be better the next week. Heck, we saw that from Utah State last season where they had a defense that was objectively awful, and then you looked at what they did to Hawaii and San Diego State last year late in the season. They absolutely ripped them to shreds. They were a completely different team. They played incredibly well in those games. And so you hope that this team is able to bounce back and don't let that identify them. Go out there, show that true improvement. We've seen the offense play better, and I think that's where we can be encouraged that the offense is going to get back to where it needs to be. The defense needs to, I think, find a way to prove itself. Where kind of the one game we have is that McNeese game, where you kind of throw that one out the window because it's an FCS game. They need a performance akin to what they did against McNeese, but against a better quality opponent. And I think San Jose would be a really good candidate, and it wouldn't show up as far as maybe holding them to 7 points, but holding them to 20 or so points. I think that would be good.
Yeah, limit them, hold them below their averages, and that'll be a real big key. ESPN today published their defensive stop rates for all teams in college football. It doesn't look good for Utah State.
No, it doesn't.
They're 118th out of 136. There's only one team in the Mountain West ranked lower than Utah State.
Is that Nevada?
That's Air Force.
Oh yeah, of course. It's Air Force. Yeah.
Giving up, they're only stopping teams 30% of the time. Teams are scoring, on average, 4.28 points per drive against Air Force. That's not good.
That's
not good. For Utah State, it's right about even. It's 50%. But they're giving up almost 3 points a drive. So that's... Air Force is the only team in the conference worse than Utah State in being able to stop opponents.
Yeah, so
That's not a great sign.
Yeah,
and they got a lot to prove,
and they've got to be able to overcome that. And we'll see if they're able to do that. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick break. JD's joined us in the studio. I haven't turned on his mic yet. That's on purpose.
All we can do is stare at him, and he can stare back at us.
We'll be back after this on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
When grid failures and severe weather cause power outages, your business might take a hit, or at home, you could lose your refrigerated food storage. Generac Standby Power Solutions help ensure an uninterrupted power supply. Generac is the #1 brand of standby generators. Get yours today from Golden Spike Electric, your trusted source for safety and security. Golden Spike Electric, powering your peace of mind. Online at gscgenerators.com or call 257-3016. They also service other models.
Looking for a luxurious local space to host your next gathering? The Hive Event Center in downtown Logan brings modern elegance to your wedding, private party, or business event. Your guests will be amazed at the glamorous design, and you'll benefit from the advanced tech included in every rental, from DIY parties to full-service packages. 255 South Main in Logan behind Beehive Grill. Luxury lives here. The Hive is your place to gather.
Luxury lives here. Luxury lives here. The Hive.
See us online at thehivelogan.com.
Express Tire. Tires for less.
Safety and comfort on the road are Express Tire's top priority. As a Point S team member, count on peace of mind with an inclusive warranty that includes nationwide protection. Any brand, any size, better pricing. No appointment necessary on the highway at 3200 North Main.
Express Tire. Tires for less.
S.E. Needham Jewelers is where Utah gets engaged. Couples throughout the state buy their rings from S.E. Needham Jewelers because of our low prices, extensive ring selection, and extraordinary benefits and services with financing available. Go to seneedham.com to learn more. We have many unique and beautiful engagement rings starting at $500. You'll find affordable engagement rings with our integrity price guarantee. This is why we are where Utah gets engaged. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
High school sports are as American as apple pie. And going to a game or meet is a chance to see the stars of tomorrow shine today. But as anybody who's ever attended a high school sporting event in Utah knows, you can't have the stars without the stripes. High schools are currently looking for new officials in almost every sport. Who looks good in stripes? Anybody looking for a way to stay connected to a sport they love. If you like the idea of giving back to your community while earning a few extra bucks, chances are you'd look good in stripes too. We want to hear from you. We need to hear from you. No officials means no games. No stripes means no stars. And what kind of America would that be? Utah needs more high school officials. Go to highschoolofficials.com to sign up or learn more. That's highschoolofficials.com.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker, Eric Frandsen, J.D. Walker joining us, and I have turned on his mic, so now we can speak.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome on in. As we've been talking Utah State football, getting to the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, kind of transitioning from Hawaii to San Jose, kind of bridging the frustrating into that game to the hope that the rest of the season still has. 8968 on the text line saying, let's remember, first of all, Hawaii isn't that bad. Second of all, the Aggies aren't that good. We need to build and hope people stay around. Patience.
Yeah, Hawaii, you have to give Hawaii some credit that they have been investing in their defense. They had significant improvements on their defense last year. You can tell they're an improved defensive team this year. And they have a host of talented wide receivers. And they had a game plan that was snap, quick, turn, throw. Snap, quick, turn, throw. And those guys made their catches, and they kept moving the ball down the field.
Yeah.
You have to give them credit. They made, and it wasn't that they were always open. They also made a number of very contested catches, very hard to bring in catches. So Hawaii did themselves, some favors. Utah State struggled to make their necessary adjustments, as we know. But
yeah, I think that was
to give Hawaii some credit,
because that's where the thing is. It was the adjustments that felt like they weren't there. Again, it's hard to, without being on the field and hearing what they're saying in the headsets. It's not like they were just letting it happen. At least I hope that's not what's happening, because otherwise that's pretty bad. But it didn't seem like it was materializing. They weren't finding a way to enforce their will. They clearly had a game plan. I think that was to try and pressure Alejado. And I guess where that ended up failing is they stopped getting pressure on Alejado. Is that seemed to be their game plan. They did that much better than they did against when it was New Mexico last year versus Hawaii. They improved that, but then the improvement they made stopped happening at the moment that Hawaii ended up going on that run.
Yeah,
so
true.
93115. He sent a little text, just a reminder that right as I was about to read the text, sending in a reminder to get to a couple of his from earlier in the hour. Saying Bronco is an amazing coach, but we need to give him some time to adapt to the new world of transfer players and other schools trying to steal your player. I believe he will figure it out. His past track record shows his second year at a program will be the team usually has a great season. And how many years does Bronco have with NIL and transfer? As far as I know, New Mexico was pretty much his first year, because I think he left Virginia like right about the time they were going with the 1-year transfers, and NIL was like a couple years later. So he's not really been part of that world yet. At least, I mean, he technically has now, because he's coached at New Mexico and at Utah State. But like, that's where he's probably feeling things out. But I think what 93015 pointed out was that Broncos had some relatively rough first years. I think he talks about how he's made a bowl game in, like, I forget the exact number, but it was like every year except for 2 seasons he's been to a bowl game. And those 2 seasons he didn't was his first year at Virginia and the one and only year at New Mexico. And then I always kind of threw in, when he was at BYU, his first year there, he went like 6-7, barely made a bowl game. Kind of like how New Mexico barely missed a bowl game. He was on the other side of that coin at New Mexico. So it's like his first years, like his first year at Virginia, they were terrible. They were 2-10. They eventually go on to play in an Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
So that's where I think you'll have some patience. Bronco has shown in the past things have been rough when he first starts. And eventually things turn out okay. Of course, we don't know if they would have turned out okay at New Mexico. There were some good early signs. They turned out okay enough at Virginia. I don't think it was spectacular, but he had a winning record at Virginia, or if he didn't, it was largely because of that 2-10 season.
Yeah, well, you look at New Mexico, how they looked in the first half of the season versus how they looked in the back half of the season, and they were a very different team.
Yeah, so you hope that Utah State does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And also, it's not just Coach Mendenhall versus the transfer portal or anything like that. You've got Evan Butts, that's the director of player personnel. You've got the whole team that's going to be working to do this stuff. So he's not just navigating this alone, but that was one of the concerns early on. But I really feel like he's the kind of coach that first-year record, maybe he's got eyes on him, prospective players across the country, now more than ever, because players can transfer just like that and go to a new team. And so players are watching him, and they know he's going to have a steady hand. They know he's a player's coach, 100% in the good way. So I was really optimistic, or maybe pessimistic at first, about the transfer portal. How's this going to work, navigating in a new era where it seemed he didn't really want to deal with it when he left the East Coast. But knowing that there's a bigger team out there and kind of seeing it on the ground, I feel like, yeah, it is a great reminder. This year is the first year of Coach Mendenhall's era, and you can see kind of the pattern of how that goes. And we've had some pretty successful moments, and it's still a little bit of a sting from Hawaii this past weekend.
Yeah, it's all talk about patience and all that. It doesn't take away the sting. It helps you move on, and I guess that's the point.
Yeah,
just move on, and just burn the tape, and get away from it. Learn from what you can and try and have some patience for the future.
I'm actually trying to get Hawaii removed as a state, but some other people are moving on a lot better than I am.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. Replace them with DC. It's just.
I was thinking like Guam,
Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
We got to take another break. When we come back, we'll have the stat that blow our minds and the full court press players of the week. Don't go away.
It's cold outside, but you can keep warm inside with a quality-built, super-efficient York furnace. Count on a furnace from York because it's backed by the strongest warranties available. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning, your local York dealer, at 752-7272. Online at advancedheating-ac.com.
We're not comfortable until you are. Advanced Heating and Air.
Hi, this is Brooke Stevenson.
Ty Smith.
And David Castor with Adams Wealth Advisors. We're truly honored to be named Best of Northern Utah Gold winner for the Best Financial Planner. This community means everything to us, and we're grateful for every customer who made this possible. Thank you for your trust.
Advisory services offered through Adams Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. For important disclosures and more information, visit adamswealthadvisors.com. That's adamswealthadvisors.com.
Old McDarrell has a farm, an appliance farm.
With down-home country prices and big city selection.
E-I-E-I-O. When you're looking for a friendly spot to drive a little and save a lot, hey, Old McDarrell has a farm, an appliance farm. No overhead, but lots of country charm. See Darrell's Appliance in beautiful downtown Benson.
Hi, this is Ashley with LSS Insurance. Are you worried about the high Medicare supplement premiums or wondering what your prescription costs will be next year? There are so many Medicare options and it can feel overwhelming. That's why I'm here to help guide you through every choice. Call LSS Insurance at 752-9493 to talk to a licensed local agent. No pressure, no cost, just clear personal advice you can trust. Don't wait. Changes must be made by December 7th. Call 752-9493 today.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the full court press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Keep your car running at its best with help from Napa Auto Parts. Need a new battery or wiper blades? Napa has the best brands and can even help you with installation right on the spot at the store. Get a Napa Legend or Napa AAA battery. They can even test your battery that you have to make sure it needs to be replaced if you need one of those Napa Legend or Napa AAA batteries. And if you need a local mechanic you can trust, visit a locally owned Napa Auto Care Center. You can find out where those are at by going to napaonline.com. Or you can walk into any of the Preston to Providence locally owned Napa Auto Parts locations and ask one of them where you can find one of those Napa Auto Care Centers. All right, so it's time. It's Tuesday. Means we have our Players of the Week, stat that blew our mind. I don't know if I have the soundbite queued up, so maybe let's just jump straight into it. Eric, do you have a stat that blew your mind?
Sure, I do. It's kind of a blended stat player thing. But I'm going to use this as my stat, okay?
All right.
Because if it's ever the first in Major League Baseball history, then that's a pretty significant stat.
We're talking about like 200 years just what it feels like.
There's a lot of games played. So Jorge Polanco, first in Major League Baseball history to have a go-ahead hit in the fifth inning or later in 3 consecutive postseason games.
That's pretty good. Pretty darn good.
I'm pretty excited about that. I'll tell you what, guys.
JD's over there smiling ear to ear.
I don't know
in his
how,
Mariners jersey.
I don't know how to deal with this at all. I was texting a friend earlier that it's just unreal, but mine would be from Game 5 of the ALDS the other night between the two teams, Detroit Tigers and Mariners. There were 472 pitches thrown. And according to the stat track, there was only 4 missed calls by the umpire that called almost 500 pitches.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing.
That's pretty good.
That he did it. But 115 plate appearances, 15 pitchers used, 298 minutes. It was an insane game. And it started off the weekend of no sleep for me.
Yeah, very much.
For good reason.
So I'm going to go with this stat I found where Ace Bailey, he's been playing all right. And in his first 2 games, this didn't count his most recent game where he only ended up playing 10 minutes, but he had 29 shot attempts in those first 2 games. He only took 28 dribbles. This is a guy who's mastering off-ball movement and just utilizing the off-ball movement to get right to his shots. Kind of Klay Thompson-esque. Not to draw a direct comparison, but that's something that Klay Thompson was good at. And it's like, I feel like it's a really good way to ease Ace Bailey into NBA scoring. Is like, don't just go out there and tell him, all right, just go play hero ball. It's like,
go take over.
Yeah, let's run through some actions and get you some easy shots. He's getting wide open mid-rangers, good open 3-pointers, still taking some somewhat difficult shots, some step backs and pull-ups, but like easing him in. Don't force him to play inefficient basketball. Ease him in through still getting him touches, but it's kind of an easier version of that.
Yeah, drawing some Tracy McGrady comparisons early on.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of comparisons you can make.
Then how do we feel about double knee tendonitis and Tracy McGrady comparisons?
Well, Ace Bailey did leave the most recent preseason game due to bilateral knee soreness.
Yeah.
So, which, I mean, that's how I feel today, bilateral knee soreness.
I was optimistic soreness. Until somebody dropped Tracy McGrady's name. I'm like, well, generational talent for a couple seasons then.
Well, I kept thinking about all the times he lost in the playoffs. So
no.
I'm just talking about his skill set on the court.
Skill set on the court, yeah. there's a lot of comparisons you could draw. Speaking of skill set on the court, players of the week. Eric, you got a player of the week?
Yeah, I got to go with Tess Wirtz. She sets a Utah State record. She ties a Mountain West record, recognized as Top Drawer Soccer's National Player of the Week. She was the Mountain West Conference Offensive Player of the Week. She scored 4 goals for Utah State in their 7-1 win over Fresno State. Fantastic performance by Tess Wirtz.
Yeah, doing some great stuff. JD, have you got someone in short notice?
I got to go with the quarterback there in Thrillville, Nate Dowley. That young man had himself a game and has been having himself a season. So that's what I'm going to have to default to because he has been really impressive.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. I'm going to give mine to Bryce Sensabaugh. I've been a little critical of him in as far as like the practicality of his scoring, but dude has just been a baller in the preseason. 26 points in the preseason, or excuse me, 24 points in the preseason opener, then 26 points. The next game, we're out of time. Cut to break.
A's NFL, everybody wants to be the next Commanders, a team that struck gold with Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels, turning chaos into contention just about overnight. But not every franchise can catch lightning in a bottle. Some rebuilds take time. Just look at what Dan Campbell's done in Detroit. It wasn't instant. It was patience, discipline, and you had growth. The Titans, they're learning that lesson the hard way. This is a franchise that's been spinning its wheels for over a decade, cycling through head coaches, GMs, quarterbacks. It's an annual tradition. Mike Munchak lasted 3 years. Ken Wisenhunt, 2. Mike Mularkey, 2. Then came Mike Vrabel. He was great. The Titans chased him out the door. His replacement, Brian Callahan, went 4-19 before getting fired. At some point, ownership needs to realize you can't build long-term success when you keep hitting the reset button. Maybe it's time Tennessee prioritizes stability. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.